My name is Keisha. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. 3 months ago, a phone call at 3 a.m. destroyed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Everything I thought I knew about the man I had been sharing my bed with for 8 years. When I answered my husband's phone that night, a woman on the other end said 5 words that made my blood run cold. She said, "Put my husband on the phone." And what she told me next? I still can't believe I didn't see it coming. I still can't believe I was that blind, that stupid, that trusting. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand how perfect I thought my life was before it all came crashing down. Before I tell you how I exposed my husband's double life, how I uncovered a web of lies so deep it still makes me sick to my stomach, I need you to do something for me. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel if you're new here, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of my stories. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I want to know who's riding with me on this one. Trust me, you're going to want to stay until the very end of this story, because what I discovered about my husband, it's worse than anything you could imagine. And the revenge I got? Oh, it was sweet. So get comfortable, grab your snacks, and let me tell you about the night my whole world fell apart. Let me tell you about Marcus Thompson, my husband, the father of my 2 beautiful children, the man I thought I would grow old with. We met 9 years ago at a friend's barbecue here in Atlanta. He was fine, I'm not gonna lie. Tall, dark skin, perfect smile, and he had this confidence about him that just drew me in. He walked up to me like he already knew I was gonna be his wife someday. And foolish me, I fell for it. I fell for every single word that came out of his lying mouth. We dated for a year before he proposed. It was this big romantic gesture at a fancy restaurant downtown. He got down on one knee, pulled out this gorgeous ring, and asked me to spend the rest of my life with him. I said yes before he even finished the question. I was so in love, so completely, foolishly, blindly in love with this man. We got married 8 years ago in a beautiful ceremony. My whole family was there. His whole family was there. And I remember looking at him at that altar thinking I was the luckiest woman in the world. I thought God had blessed me with the perfect man, a man who would love me, protect me, cherish me, and be faithful to me until death do us part. That's what he promised. That's what he stood up there and swore to God, to our families, to me. And I believed every single word. For 8 years, I believed I was living the dream. We bought a beautiful house in a nice neighborhood. We had 2 kids together. My daughter Aaliyah is 7 now, and my son Marcus Jr. is 5. I named my son after his father because I thought his father was a man worth honoring. I thought his father was a man my son should look up to, should aspire to be like. God, I was so stupid. Marcus had a good job as a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. At least, that's what he told me. He traveled a lot for work, sometimes 2 or 3 times a month, but he always came home with gifts for me and the kids. He always called to say goodnight. He always told me he loved me and couldn't wait to get back home to his family. And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. He had never given me any reason to doubt him. Our neighbors used to tell me how lucky I was. My own mother used to say she wished my father had been half the husband Marcus was. My girlfriends were jealous. They would complain about their no-good men while I sat there feeling blessed because my husband wasn't like that. My husband was different. My husband was one of the good ones. He would bring me flowers for no reason. He would plan date nights and surprise me with jewelry on our anniversary. He was good with the kids, always playing with them, helping with homework, coaching Marcus Jr.'s Little League team when he was in town. He went to church with us on Sundays, held my hand during service, and said amen in all the right places. Everyone thought he was perfect. I thought he was perfect. But you know what they say, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. I just never thought that would apply to my own marriage. I never thought the man sleeping next to me every night was living a whole other life when he walked out that door. Looking back now, I can see the signs. I can see all the little red flags I ignored, all the warning signals I explained away, because I didn't want to believe my perfect husband could be anything less than perfect. But at the time, I was blind. I was so caught up in the fairy tale that I refused to see the truth that was right in front of my face. It started about a year ago, little things at first, so small I barely noticed them. Marcus started keeping his phone face down all the time. He said the screen lighting up was distracting him. He changed his passwords, and when I asked why, he said his company required them to update for security purposes. Made sense, right? Why would I question that? Then the business trips started increasing. He used to travel maybe once or twice a month, but suddenly it was every week. Sometimes he'd be gone for 3 or 4 days at a time. He said the company was expanding, that he was being considered for a promotion, that he needed to put in the extra work now so we could enjoy the rewards later. And stupid me, I supported him. I told him I was proud of him. I held down the house and the kids while he was gone, and I never once complained because I thought he was doing it all for us. The late nights started too. He'd come home from the office at 9, 10, sometimes 11 at night. He said there were deadlines, meetings, reports that needed to be finished. He'd come home exhausted, eat the dinner I kept warm for him, and fall asleep on the couch. I felt bad for him. I thought my poor husband was working himself to the bone for our family. I would rub his shoulders and tell him not to work so hard, and he would kiss my forehead and say it would all be worth it soon. My friends started making comments. My girl Tanya said it was strange how much he was traveling. My sister Denise said she didn't trust a man who was gone that much. But I defended him. I got angry at them for even suggesting something was wrong. I told them they were just jealous because their relationships weren't as strong as mine. I told them Marcus loved me and would never do anything to hurt me. I pushed away the people who were trying to warn me because I didn't want to hear the truth. There were other things too. He started going to the gym more, getting in better shape than he'd been in years. He bought new cologne, new clothes, started caring more about his appearance. I thought he was just taking better care of himself. I thought maybe he was trying to look good for me. I was flattered. I didn't realize he was looking good for someone else. Sometimes his stories didn't quite add up. He'd mention a restaurant in a city he supposedly wasn't in. He'd forget details about trips he'd told me about. Once, he said he was in Chicago for a conference, but when I called the hotel to leave him a message, they said they had no guest by that name. When I asked him about it, he said the reservation must have been under the company name. I believed him. I always believed him. The intimacy between us changed too. We went from making love multiple times a week to barely once a month. He always had an excuse. He was tired. He was stressed. He had a lot on his mind. I started wondering if something was wrong with me. I bought new lingerie, tried to spice things up, but nothing worked. He'd just pat my hand and tell me he loved me, but he was exhausted. Meanwhile, I now know exactly where all his energy was going. There was one night, maybe 6 months ago, that should have been my wake-up call. It was about 2 in the morning, and I woke up because I reached for Marcus and he wasn't there. I found him in the living room on his phone, texting someone. When I asked who he was talking to at that hour, he nearly jumped out of his skin. He said it was his co-worker about an urgent project. He put the phone away real quick and came back to bed. I should have pushed harder. I should have demanded to see that phone. But I trusted him. I trusted my husband, and that trust was the biggest mistake of my life. Now let me tell you about the night everything changed. The night my whole world came crashing down around me. I remember it like it was yesterday. I will remember it for the rest of my life. It was a Tuesday night. The kids were asleep, and Marcus had gotten home late from work as usual. He took a shower and came to bed around 11. He fell asleep almost immediately, which wasn't unusual. The man was always tired lately. I remember lying there next to him, watching him sleep, thinking about how much I loved him, thinking about how lucky I was. If I had known then what I know now, I would have been packing his bags instead of counting my blessings. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to a sound. It took me a second to realize it was Marcus's phone buzzing on the nightstand. It wasn't just one notification. It kept buzzing, over and over, like someone was calling. Marcus didn't even stir. That man could sleep through anything, I swear. I should have just ignored it. I should have gone back to sleep and let it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick up that phone. Call it intuition. Call it God trying to show me the truth. Call it whatever you want. Something made me reach over and grab that phone. The screen showed an unknown number. Now normally I wouldn't answer my husband's phone in the middle of the night. That's not something I ever did. But that night, something was different. Something in my gut was telling me to answer. So I did. I put the phone to my ear and said hello. There was a pause on the other end, and then a woman's voice came through. She sounded angry, aggressive, like she was ready for a fight. And the first words out of her mouth made my heart stop. "Put my husband on the phone." I remember blinking in the darkness, trying to process what I'd just heard. I thought she had the wrong number. I thought there had been some kind of mistake. So I said, "Excuse me? I think you have the wrong number." And this woman laughed. She laughed at me. And then she said something that changed my life forever. "No, I don't have the wrong number. I'm looking for Marcus Thompson, and I'm his wife." The room started spinning. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My husband was lying right next to me, and there was a woman on the phone claiming to be his wife. This had to be a joke. This had to be some kind of sick prank. But something in her voice told me she was dead serious. I got out of bed and walked into the hallway because I didn't want to wake Marcus. Not yet. Not until I understood what was happening. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. "What did you just say?" I whispered. "You heard me," she said. "My name is Danielle Thompson. I've been married to Marcus for 3 years. We have a 2-year-old son together, and I just found your number in his phone. Listed under K with a heart emoji. So who the hell are you?" I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling down. This couldn't be real. This could not be happening. I had been married to Marcus for 8 years. We had 2 children together. Our wedding photos were hanging on the walls of this very house. And now some woman was telling me she was his wife too? "I'm Keisha," I finally managed to say. "I've been married to Marcus for 8 years. We have 2 kids. I don't know who you are or what kind of game you're playing, but you need to stop." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Danielle spoke again, her voice had changed. The anger was gone, replaced by something else. Confusion, pain, the same things I was feeling. 8 years? She said. "That's not possible. I've been with Marcus for 5 years. We got married 3 years ago. He told me he had never been married before. He told me I was his first wife." And that's when it hit me. That's when I realized this woman wasn't lying. She wasn't playing games. She was just as much a victim as I was. My husband, the man I had loved and trusted for almost a decade, had been living a double life. He had another wife, another family, another whole existence that I knew nothing about. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor of my hallway, tears streaming down my face. This woman, this stranger, was crying too. I could hear her trying to hold it together on the other end of the line. 2 women, hundreds of miles apart, both married to the same man, both finding out the truth at 3 a.m. on a random Tuesday. "Where are you?" I asked her. "Memphis," she said. He told me he travels to Atlanta for work, and suddenly it all made sense. All those business trips, all those late nights, all those times he was supposedly working so hard for our family. He wasn't working. He was with her. He was with his other wife and his other child in Memphis, Tennessee, living a whole other life like we didn't even exist. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake him up right then and there and demand answers. But Danielle said something that made me stop. "Wait," she said. "Before you confront him, let's talk. Let's compare notes. Because if he's been lying to both of us this whole time, I want to know everything. I want to know every single lie he's told, and then I want to make him pay." Something in her voice resonated with me. This woman wasn't my enemy. She was my ally. We had both been betrayed by the same man, and instead of fighting each other, we could fight him together. So I agreed. I crept back into the bedroom, grabbed my phone, and went downstairs to the kitchen. Marcus didn't move a muscle. He had no idea that his whole empire of lies was about to come crumbling down. Danielle and I talked until the sun came up. We compared everything, every lie, every excuse, every trip and late night and suspicious behavior. It was like putting together the pieces of a puzzle that finally made sense. She told me her story first. She met Marcus 5 years ago at a business conference in Memphis. He told her he was a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company, which was partly true. What he didn't tell her was that he already had a wife and 2 kids in Atlanta. He pursued her, charmed her, made her feel like she was the only woman in the world. Sound familiar? because that's exactly what he did to me. They dated for 2 years before he proposed. She said it was romantic, a surprise trip to Miami where he got down on one knee on the beach. She had no idea he'd already done the same thing for me years before. They got married in a small ceremony, just family and close friends. She wore a white dress and thought she was starting her happily ever after, just like I did. Then she got pregnant. She said Marcus was so happy, so excited to be a father. Except he already was a father. He already had 2 kids that he went home to when he wasn't with her. But she didn't know that. She thought she was giving him his first child. Their son is named Marcus Jr., too. Can you believe that? This man had 2 sons, both named after him, with 2 different women who didn't know each other existed. The audacity. The absolute nerve of this man to name both his sons the same thing, like we were interchangeable, like our families were interchangeable. Danielle said his schedule with her was similar to what I experienced. He would be home for a few days, then have to travel for work. He missed birthdays, holidays, important moments because he was supposedly on business trips. But now we knew the truth. When he wasn't with her, he was with me. When he wasn't with me, he was with her. He had been playing us both for years, and neither of us had any idea. The more we talked, the more lies we uncovered. His phone habits, his excuses, his schedule that never quite made sense. She had noticed the same things I had. She had asked the same questions and gotten the same explanations. He had perfected his lies over years of practice, feeding us both the same stories with slight variations. But here's where it got even worse. As we were comparing notes, Danielle mentioned something that made my stomach turn. She said sometimes Marcus would get text messages late at night that he said were from coworkers, but she had caught a glimpse of one once, and it was from someone named Jasmine. When she asked him about it, he said Jasmine was just a colleague, nothing to worry about. Jasmine? I said. He's never mentioned a Jasmine to me. We both went quiet, the same horrible thought crossing our minds. What if it wasn't just the 2 of us? What if there was another woman out there? Maybe even more than one. Danielle did some digging on his phone records that she had access to through their shared phone plan. What she found made us both sick. There was a 3rd woman, a woman named Jasmine, who lived in Birmingham, Alabama. They weren't married as far as we could tell, but they had been seeing each other for at least a year. She was probably sitting at home right now thinking she had a committed boyfriend who loved her, not knowing that he had 2 whole wives and families. 3 women, 3 cities, 3 separate lives. This man had been running a whole operation, and none of us had any clue. He had juggled all of us perfectly, kept us all in the dark, made us all believe we were the only one. The level of deception was almost impressive. Almost, if it wasn't so devastating. By the time the sun came up, I had cried more tears than I thought I had in my body. But something else had happened too. The sadness was starting to turn into anger, into rage, into a burning desire to make this man pay for what he had done to me, to Danielle, to our children, to every woman he had ever lied to. Danielle felt the same way. We made a decision that morning. We weren't going to confront him separately. We weren't going to fall apart and let him manipulate us or talk his way out of this. We were going to gather evidence, build our case, and then take him down together. We were going to make sure he lost everything, just like he had made us lose our sense of security, our trust, our belief in love. "I'll be in touch," Danielle said before we hung up. "Don't let him know anything has changed. Act normal. Pretend everything is fine. Can you do that?" I looked at the bedroom door where my husband was still sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his lies had finally caught up with him. Could I pretend? Could I look at this man, sleep next to this man, let him kiss me goodbye like everything was normal? "Yes," I said. "I can do that, for as long as it takes." The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I had to look Marcus in the face every single day and act like nothing was wrong. I had to let him kiss me goodbye in the morning, let him tell me he loved me at night, let him play with our children like he was some kind of devoted family man. Every moment was torture. Every touch made my skin crawl. But I had to keep it together. I had to stay calm and collect as much evidence as possible. I started paying attention to things I had ignored before. When he said he was going on a business trip, I noted the dates and where he said he was going. Then I would check with Danielle to see if he was actually in Memphis with her during those times. 9 times out of 10, the math didn't add up. He had been lying so much and for so long that his stories had become a tangled web of contradictions. I went through our bank statements and credit card records. What I found made my blood boil. He had been spending money on 2 households, 2 sets of bills, 2 families. There were charges at restaurants in Memphis I had never heard of, purchases at stores in Birmingham where Jasmine lived, hotel rooms on nights he told me he was sleeping at the office. The evidence was piling up, and it painted a picture of a man who had been betraying me for years without a single ounce of guilt. Danielle was doing the same thing on her end. She found credit card charges for flowers and jewelry that she had never received, charges at restaurants in Atlanta on nights he was supposedly traveling for work. He had been spending money on me while lying to her, and spending money on her while lying to me. And God knows how much he was spending on Jasmine. We also discovered something that made the whole situation even more infuriating. Marcus had been using company resources to fund his double life. He was filing fake expense reports, padding his travel reimbursements, using his corporate card for personal trips to see his other families. Not only was he a cheater and a liar, but he was also a thief. He was stealing from his company to finance his web of deception. I took screenshots of everything: bank statements, credit card charges, text messages, calendar entries that didn't match his stories. I saved it all to a secret folder on my phone, backed it up to the cloud, and even printed physical copies that I hid in a safe deposit box my mother had at her bank. I wasn't taking any chances. This man had already proven he was capable of elaborate deception, and I wasn't going to let him destroy the evidence if he found out what I was doing. Every night, I would lie in bed next to him and replay the lies in my head. I would think about all the times he said he loved me, all the times he promised to be faithful, all the times he made me believe I was his one and only, and then I would think about Danielle, lying in her bed in Memphis, probably doing the same thing, and Jasmine in Birmingham, completely unaware that her boyfriend had 2 whole families. The rage kept me awake most nights, but it also kept me focused. I was going to destroy this man. I was going to take everything from him, just like he had taken everything from me. The hardest part was keeping it from my kids. They didn't know anything was wrong. They still ran to their daddy when he came home, still believed he hung the moon and stars. I had to watch my babies love and trust a man who didn't deserve either. But I couldn't tell them the truth. Not yet. They were too young to understand, and I wasn't going to let Marcus's sins destroy their innocence before I had to. 3 weeks after that phone call, Danielle and I decided it was time. We had gathered enough evidence to bury Marcus 10 times over. We knew his schedule, his lies, his finances, everything. All that was left was the confrontation. We planned it carefully. Danielle would fly into Atlanta on a Friday afternoon while Marcus was supposedly at work. She would come straight to my house, and we would wait for him together. He always came home around 7 on Fridays, thinking he had the whole weekend with his Atlanta family before he'd make up some excuse to run off to Memphis again. But this Friday would be different. This Friday, he would walk through that door and find both of his wives waiting for him. The day Danielle arrived, I was a nervous wreck. I had sent the kids to my mother's house for the weekend, telling her I needed some alone time with Marcus. She was happy to take them, thinking she was helping us have a romantic weekend. If only she knew. When Danielle knocked on my door, I didn't know what to expect. Here was the other woman, the one my husband had been cheating on me with, standing on my doorstep. But the moment I saw her face, all of that melted away. She looked just as broken as I felt. Her eyes were red from crying, her hands were shaking. She wasn't my enemy. She was my sister in this nightmare. We hugged right there in the doorway, 2 strangers bonded by the worst kind of betrayal. She came inside, looked around at the home I had built with Marcus, at the family photos on the walls, at the evidence of a life she never knew existed, and I saw the pain in her eyes deepen. "He has the same photos in our house," she said quietly. "Family photos, pictures of him and me and our son, like we're his real family." We are both his real family, I said. That's the problem. We sat in the living room and went over the plan one more time. When Marcus walked through that door, we wouldn't yell or scream. We would stay calm, present the evidence, and let him try to explain his way out of this. Not that any explanation could possibly be good enough. There was no excuse for what he had done. But I wanted to watch him try. I wanted to see him squirm and stutter and realize that his lies had finally caught up with him. The hours crawled by. We watched the clock, checked our phones, jumped at every sound. Finally, at 7:15, we heard a car pull into the driveway. We heard the engine turn off. We heard footsteps coming up to the front door. We heard the key turn in the lock. The door opened and Marcus walked in. He was carrying flowers, probably stolen from some gas station on his way home, thinking he was going to have a nice weekend with his wife. He called out, "Babe, I'm home. Where are you?" "In the living room," I answered, keeping my voice as normal as possible. He walked in with that smile on his face, the same smile that had fooled me for years. And then he saw Danielle sitting on the couch, and that smile vanished. His whole face changed. The color drained out of his cheeks. The flowers slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. "What?" he started, looking back and forth between us. "What is this? What's going on?" I stood up slowly, never taking my eyes off him. "Marcus, I think you know Danielle. Your other wife? The one you married 3 years ago? The mother of your other child?" He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. For once in his life, Marcus Thompson was speechless. The master liar, the smooth talker, the man who had an excuse for everything, couldn't find a single word to say. Danielle stood up too. "Hi, husband," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Surprised to see me?" Marcus backed up against the wall, his hands raised like he was surrendering to the police. "Listen," he said, "this isn't what it looks like. I can explain. Just let me explain." "Oh, this is exactly what it looks like," I said. "You have 2 wives, 2 families, 2 children named Marcus Jr., and you've been lying to both of us for years. What is there to explain?" He started stammering, trying to come up with some excuse, some story that would make this okay. "It's complicated," he said. "My life, my situation, you don't understand. I love you both. I never meant to hurt anyone." "You love us both?" Danielle laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You love us so much that you lied to our faces every single day? You love us so much that you made us think we were special when we were just options? That's not love, Marcus. That's selfishness. That's abuse." I had printed out all the evidence and put it in a folder on the coffee table. I picked it up and threw it at him. Papers flew everywhere, bank statements and text messages, and photos of his lies scattering across the floor. "That's years of deception," I said. "Credit card charges, phone records, flight itineraries. Every lie you told we have proof of. You're not going to talk your way out of this one, Marcus. The game is over." He looked down at the papers at his feet, and I saw something break in him. The mask he had worn for years finally cracked. His shoulders slumped. His head dropped. And for the first time since I had known him, Marcus Thompson looked like the pathetic, broken man he truly was. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant to hurt you." "Sorry?" I felt the rage building in my chest. "Sorry doesn't begin to cover this. You stole years of my life. You made me believe in a lie. You made our children believe in a lie, and you did the same thing to her. Sorry is the most insulting thing you could possibly say right now." What happened next was a blur of accusations and tears, and finally, the truth coming out. Marcus tried everything. He tried to blame his childhood, his fear of commitment, his need to be loved. He tried to turn us against each other, suggesting that if I had been a better wife, he wouldn't have needed Danielle. That made both of us see red. "Don't you dare," Danielle said, pointing her finger in his face. "Don't you dare try to blame us for your choices. You chose to lie. You chose to cheat. You chose to create this mess. This is all on you." He tried to beg. He got down on his knees and literally begged us to forgive him, to give him another chance, to let him make it right. It was pathetic. This man who had seemed so strong and confident was reduced to a crying mess on the floor of his own living room. And honestly, I felt nothing. Not pity, not satisfaction, just a cold emptiness where my love for him used to be. We also told him we knew about Jasmine. His head snapped up when we mentioned her name, and for a second I saw real fear in his eyes. He didn't even try to deny it. He just closed his eyes and nodded, like he had known this moment was coming and had finally accepted his fate. "How many others?" Danielle demanded. "Is it just the three of us, or are there more women out there that we don't know about?" "Just you three," he said. "I swear, just you three." But how could we believe anything he said? This man had lied to us for years. His word meant nothing. For all we knew, there were women in every city he had ever visited, all thinking they had a future with him, all being played just like us. After hours of confrontation, Danielle and I were emotionally exhausted. We told Marcus to get out, to go sleep somewhere else, anywhere else, because he wasn't welcome in this house anymore. He tried to argue, tried to say it was his house too, but one look at our faces told him that wasn't a battle worth fighting. He grabbed a bag, threw some clothes in it, and left with his tail between his legs. After he was gone, Danielle and I sat in silence for a long time. We had done it. We had confronted him together. But the victory felt hollow. We were both still left with the wreckage of our lives to sort through. "What now?" she asked. "Now we take everything from him," I said. "Everything he has, everything he loves. We make sure he never does this to anyone, ever again." The next few months were all about the fallout. Danielle and I both filed for divorce within a week of the confrontation. We hired lawyers, sharks who specialized in cases like this. And boy, did Marcus have a lot to answer for. The first thing we did was report his expense report fraud to his company. Turns out, stealing from a pharmaceutical company is a really good way to lose your six-figure job. Marcus was fired within 2 weeks of our report. No severance, no reference, nothing. Just a box of his belongings and a security escort out of the building. Then came the legal battles. Divorce proceedings in 2 states, custody disputes, division of assets. It was complicated because Marcus had technically been committing bigamy. His marriage to Danielle wasn't even legally valid because he was already married to me. She was devastated when she found out, but it actually worked in her favor legally. She could go after him for fraud, for the years she had spent believing she was legally his wife. I got the house. I got primary custody of our kids. I got child support that would be garnished from whatever income he managed to scrape together after losing his career. The judge was not sympathetic to Marcus, not even a little bit. When all the evidence came out in court, even the judge looked at him with disgust. Danielle got a good settlement too: alimony, child support, and a restraining order that kept Marcus from coming within 500 feet of her or their son. She was rebuilding her life in Memphis, and last I heard she was doing really well. As for Jasmine, the girlfriend in Birmingham, we never reached out to her directly. But word travels fast, and I'm pretty sure she found out the truth eventually. I hope she did. I hope she realized what kind of man she was dealing with and ran as far away as possible. Marcus tried everything to salvage the situation. He begged, he pleaded, he sent long emails and text messages swearing he was a changed man. He tried to get our families involved, convincing his mother to call me and plead his case. He even showed up at my mother's house once, trying to see the kids. That ended with my brother threatening to call the police if he didn't leave immediately. He also tried to threaten us. He said if we went through with the divorces, he would make our lives a living hell. He would fight for full custody. He would drag our names through the mud. He would make sure everyone knew we were the villains in this story. But here's the thing about threats from a man who has lost everything. They're empty. Marcus had no money, no job, no reputation left to leverage. His threats were just the desperate flailings of a man who had finally faced the consequences of his actions. The final court date was 6 months after that 3 a.m. phone call. I walked into that courtroom with my head held high and walked out a free woman, divorced from Marcus Thompson, free from his lies, his manipulation, his abuse. It was over. It's been a year now since that phone call changed my life. A year since I found out my husband was living a double life. A year since my whole world fell apart and I had to rebuild it from the ground up. And you know what? I'm doing better than I ever thought possible. My kids are thriving. They had a hard time at first, not understanding why Daddy wasn't living with us anymore. I had to explain it in terms they could understand, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But kids are resilient. With therapy and support and a whole lot of love, they've adjusted. They still see Marcus occasionally, supervised visits that I insisted on. But our home is peaceful now. There's no more lying, no more secrets, no more wondering why Daddy is always gone. I started my own business about 8 months ago. A small consulting firm that's growing every day. For years I had put my dreams on hold to support Marcus's career, and now I'm finally pursuing my own. It feels good. It feels like I'm finally becoming the woman I was always meant to be. Danielle and I still talk regularly. Can you believe that? The other woman, the one I was supposed to hate, has become one of my closest friends. We went through something together that very few people could understand. That kind of experience bonds you in a way that's hard to explain. She's engaged now to a man who treats her like gold, a man who only has one phone, one job, one city, one life. She deserves that happiness after everything Marcus put her through. As for Marcus, last I heard, he's living with his mother in a small apartment on the other side of town. No job, no family, no future. All those years he spent building his empire of lies, and now he has nothing to show for it. Sometimes I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. Then I remember the years of deception, the wasted time, the pain he caused, and that sympathy disappears real quick. He tries to reach out sometimes. Birthday cards for the kids, messages on my phone that I never answer. He says he's changed, he's in therapy, he's working on himself. Maybe he is. I don't really care. That man is no longer my concern. My focus is on my children, my business, my future. He doesn't get any more of my energy. I'm not dating yet. I'm not ready. The trust issues run deep, and it's going to take a long time before I can open my heart to anyone again. But I'm working on it. I'm healing. And someday, when the time is right, I'll be ready to love again. I'll be ready to find someone who deserves my love and who will never make me question their loyalty. For now, I'm happy being on my own. I'm happy being a strong mother to my children, a successful businesswoman, a survivor. Because that's what I am. A survivor of betrayal, of lies, of a man who tried to break me. But I didn't break. I bent. I cracked. I almost shattered. But I did not break. And I never will. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, I want you to hear me. Trust your gut. If something feels off in your relationship, it probably is. Don't ignore the red flags like I did. Don't let love blind you to the truth. Because the truth always comes out eventually, and when it does, you want to be prepared. I also want to say this. If you find out your partner is cheating, the other woman is not your enemy. More often than not, she's a victim too. She's been fed the same lies, sold the same dreams, hurt in the same ways. Instead of tearing each other down, we need to lift each other up. We need to turn our pain into power and direct it at the person who actually deserves it. And finally, I want you to know that you can survive this. I know it doesn't feel like it when you're in the middle of it. I know the pain seems unbearable and the betrayal seems unforgivable. But you are stronger than you know. You have the power to rebuild your life, to find happiness again, to become the best version of yourself. It won't happen overnight. It will be hard, it will hurt, and there will be days when you want to give up. But don't. Keep fighting. Keep pushing forward. Because on the other side of this pain is a life that is entirely yours, free from lies and manipulation and people who don't deserve you. I'm living proof of that. I'm Keisha, 34 years old, and I survived my husband's double life. And now I'm thriving. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and show me some love. Subscribe to this channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss another story. I've got plenty more to share, trust me. If you've ever been through something like this, if you've ever been cheated on or lied to, or found out a terrible secret about someone you loved, drop your story in the comments. Let me know I'm not alone, and let me know you're not alone either. We're all in this together, supporting each other, lifting each other up. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for giving me a space to share my pain and my triumph. It means more than you know. Stay blessed, stay aware, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. Never let anyone make you question your worth. Never let anyone make you feel like you deserve anything less than complete honesty and faithful love. My name is Keisha, and this was my story. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, the truth always comes out. Always. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.